So thank you, Rabbi Itzhak
Shalom.
Shapira. Shalom. Nice
you?
meet. Thank you for coming.
Thank
So
you.
you just flew in and you're all over, and you
Yes.
wrote a book.
Yes, I wrote a very interesting book by the title of The Return of the Kosher Pig.
The Kosher Pig. Now
The
that
Return
is
of the-
interesting.
Yes, very interesting.
Wow, wow. And so tell me a little bit about you.
Well, this is actually my first time, I should say, in this part of the country. So that's
well, welcome
this
to
is the first
California.
time for me too. I was raised in Israel, in a Jewish home, in a what we call Sephardic. Those are Jews who came from Spain, descended from Spain, and immigrated to the Middle East on my father's side. They made an aliyah, so I'm the first generation, in essence, of Israeli born and raised, because they arrived right as Israel became a country, just before Israel became a country. And from my mother's side, we're Holocaust survivors. My mother is experienced, been part of the Holocaust and so forth. So I was raised in a traditional Jewish home, raised up to think and believe that everybody around me is Jewish. Matter of fact, I joke and I tell people that I never met a Gentile till I came to America. So
Really?
yeah,
So what part of Israel did you grow up in?
I grew in the area called the Sharon Valley,
Okay.
in a neighborhood that was made mostly out of Sephardic, observant Jewish people.
Okay, so Orthodox.
Yeah, Orthodox, traditional, definitely more religious Jews. And that was kind of the setup that I was raised in, studying Hebrew, study Torah, and
Wonderful.
yeah.
Wow. Okay, and then so what happened in your life? I mean, so you're raised Orthodox, and what are you now?
Well, that's a good question. I am Jewish, okay? And this is an interesting thing. I am a Jewish person who believes that the Messiah has come, okay? Some people use the term Messianic Jews, but to be honest, I don't think that the Lord is big into term, okay? There are different type of Jews, and I just like to say I am not a Hasidic Jew, I'm not a Reformed Jew, I'm not a conservative, I am just Jewish, okay? So let's start there for a second. By the way, in Judaism, there's what's known as the 13th principle of faith, that every observant Jewish person would know. And in the 12th principle of Judaism, it says, I believe in a perfect faith, in the coming of the Messiah. Even if he will be delayed, I will wait for him every day. I will expect him and believe in him. So I'm a Jewish person who believes that the Messiah has come. His name was in Hebrew Yeshua, which literally means the Lord saves. In English we say Jesus, in Hebrew Yeshua. I still practice Judaism though. It's interesting, people think, how can you be Jewish and believe in Jesus? The two do not mix. But you know, the funny thing, 2,000 years ago, they asked the opposite question. They asked the question, how can Gentile believe in the same guy? The question wasn't, what are we going to do about the Jews? The question was, what are we going to do about the Gentiles? So a lot of water were under the bridge. A lot of things happened in the last 2,000 years. And I came to the conclusion that Yeshua, Jesus, is the Jewish Messiah. I came to this realization.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating. Well, it's interesting that you come, because I've been doing programs about Israel and about the ancient prophecies in the Torah.
Right.
There's over 366 in the Old Testament.
Right.
Because a lot of Christians think, well, the Old Testament, throw that out. And then a lot of the Jewish people think, well, the New Testament.
Right.
But I believe it's all one book. But there's over 366 prophecies that fit the description of Christ. Now, for just 1 in 8, the chances of that are astronomical, but there's over 366 that fit the description of Christ as the Messiah.
Yes. Yet the majority of the Jewish people, and I wouldn't say all of Jewish people, I say the majority of Jewish people do not believe that he was the Messiah, interestingly enough. But if you look at the prophets, and it's true, the Messiah had to come, according to Daniel, before the destruction of the temple. Isaiah tells us that the Messiah had to suffer for the sins of Israel. Even Moses himself spoke of the Messiah who we are to listen to in the Torah itself. So you're absolutely right. The Messiah, the prophets of the Messiah are engraved in the entire Bible. And in the end of the day, the essence of all creation, the essence from Genesis 1:1, the essence of the Torah is Mashiach. It is the Messiah. So you're absolutely right. But it's still very difficult for a Jewish person to receive it, because for 2,000 years, so many terrible things have done in the name of Jesus by those who claim to be Christians. So a Jewish person, take example my mother, I can talk about very personal experiences. When I came to the realization that he's the Messiah, my mother told me point blank to my face, do you know what was done in that name to me? They shaved my head. They took a cup and they forced me to drink it. They said that I killed Jesus and this blood is on your hand. That's what they said to a 7-year-old little girl. So think about this. It's very difficult. We have much to overcome in presentation of the truth.
Yeah, I've actually interviewed some Holocaust survivors,
Yeah.
and you know firsthand from having a mother
Yeah.
who suffered such
Yeah.
atrocities and injustices. But what people don't understand is that crucifixion is not a Jewish methodology of punishment. It's Roman.
It's true. It's true.
And so the Jewish people, I think, have been kind of the scapegoats because of that. It's been because Jewish people don't crucify. That's a Roman method of punishment. And I didn't know that till I was talking to my friend Alicia Appelman. She's
Yes.
a survivor. And when she told me that, I was like, it clicked. It's like, that's right. Jewish people, really, in the culture of Judaism, you don't torture people because there's a fear and reverence towards God and creation and life. Yeah, so torturing another human being is not something that you really see in the Jewish culture.
Yeah, it's interesting. In Judaism, we learn that there are two messiahs. One of the messiah is called the Messiah who is son of Joseph, and the other one called the Messiah who is the son of David. Now, the difference between the Messiah son of Joseph and the Messiah son of David, in traditional Jewish thinking, has to do with the type of Messiah that we will receive, has to do with us as Jews in our hearts. In essence, if we very meritorious, we treat one another with kindness, we will receive a king, a Messiah who is a king. He will come as a king. Zechariah tells us he will come from clouds, from the heavens, etc., etc. However, if we are wicked and we don't treat one another as God intended, and we don't treat God as and worship Him as He intended, we will have to receive another type of Messiah, who is called the Messiah son of Joseph. And the idea behind the Messiah son of Joseph is, as everybody know the story of Joseph, he was sold by his brothers, and later on he revealed himself to the brothers. That's why it's called the son of Joseph, because it's a type of a Messiah. If you remember, Joseph redeemed his brothers. He is the one who became the saviors for his brother. They didn't recognize him until the very end. So Judaism believes in this idea of the Messiah, son of Joseph, who will reveal himself. The question becomes, though, is the Bible really support the conditional prophecies? If we do say that the Bible does support the conditional prophecy, it means that one of Zechariah prophecies must be wrong, because he says that the same Messiah will come lowly, riding upon a donkey, and he also said that the same Messiah will appear from the clouds of heavens. He did not say that there will be condition. It's, in essence, both prophecies has to come true. The Messiah had to appear lowly riding upon the donkey, Again, ask yourself the question, in the first century, what was the spiritual state of the Jewish people? In our sacred books, in the Talmud, it teaches us that the temple was destroyed because of baseless hatred. Okay? Baseless hatred.
Sinat Kainim.
You pronounce it Sinat Chinam.
Sinat Chinam.
Sinat Chinam, which literally means baseless hatred. So, again, the question is baseless hatred toward whom? And I believe it was a baseless hatred toward the. Tell us the seven. Daniel give us a very similar message. Of the prophets speak on one voice. The question is really what happened after this. You have an era that people do not realize from 70 AD to 118 AD, where everybody was Jewish. Theologians tell us that 1 out of 5 Jews in Jerusalem, 20% believe that he was the Jewish Messiah. So the question is, we need to ask ourselves, what happened to all of them? Where have they disappeared to, of those people? And we read the accounts that, the worship center moved from Jerusalem to a city called Yavne, where we began formulating a prayer called the prayer of 18 benediction that actually have 19 benediction. And the last, the 19 benediction that was added is a benediction to curse the early believers of the Messiah. So there was a clear separation that started to try to remove the Jewish followers of Yeshua from normative Jewish life, okay? In the synagogue, where else would it be? But that tells us also that there was a period of at least 30 or 40 years that they were part of the Jewish community. Going to 132 AD, the Bar Kokhba revolt took place. Well, when Bar Kokhba declared himself to be the Messiah, the Messianic Jews said, we're sorry, we can't join you because the Messiah already arrived. So, by the way, history, we can look back at history. Who was right? Bar Kokhba or the Messianic Jews? Clearly the Messianic Jews were in the right. But they were looked at as heretics. And they said, well, you didn't join the revolt. So they've been casted out. And that was the beginning of the end of the Messianic movement. Then, of course, later on, the fathers of the church. Anti-Semitism goes to some of the even early church fathers. You see it in Jerome's writing when he writes, they are neither Christians, no, they're neither Jews. They're nobodies in essence. They're neither here or there. So it's important to us. To me, people ask me, how can you be Jewish and believe in the Messiah? And I always close my eyes and I pictures James the Just, he's mentioned in the Talmud too. James, or in Hebrew, Yaakov, Jacob, he is mentioned in the Talmud. Or Shimon Kefa, Peter. Most people don't know it with Peter, but we have a day of fast in Judaism today for Shimon Kefa, for Peter. In normative Judaism. He wrote a very famous prayer for Yom Kippur that recited everywhere in the world by Orthodox Jews. Everybody knows that Shimon Kefa have written this prayer. And my heart desire, if I close my eyes, is to be part of this community, walking in Jerusalem, imagining the brothers there. They were Jewish, they loved the Torah, and they recognized the Jewish Messiah, because the two are not contradicting one another. So this is our heart. And when I realized that Yeshua was a Jew, not just any old Jew, a Pharisaic Jew, that ultimately rabbinical. In some ways, he was very strict, Rabbi Yeshua. He's telling you, if you look at a woman, you already committed a sin. This is very strict. People could equate the word Pharisee, if you look at the dictionary, to the word hypocrite. But really, people do not realize that Yeshua himself was a Pharisee. Paul himself, after the quote-unquote conversion process, stood up and spoke in the Hebrew tongue and said, I am a Pharisee. I still am. So it is important for now to restore back the Jewishness of Yeshua, back to the true identity, because the identity has been misportrayed, mislabeled for 2,000 years.
Yeah, and then Christianity is a totally, well, my experience was, I just started resting on Sundays. And then a friend of mine was doing some work on my house, and he said, oh, this guy's a holy roller like you. And so we were talking and talking and talking, and he said, well, Saturday's the Sabbath. I said, no, it's Sunday. And he pointed, and then he said his name isn't Jesus, it's Yeshua. And I thought, okay, I got like really offended because,
Sure.
you know, and it totally rocked my boat. I was like, well, and so the Christian thing has really been corrupted with Sunday worship. I mean, I don't want to go into all that.
But it's more. But look, it's more than the Sunday worship and those things. The Gentiles received the Messiah for one purpose only. Okay, it says in Romans, so they can provoke the Jewish people to be what God intended them to be. And what God intended for the Jewish people to be is a nation of priests. There is a scripture in Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy 30. Let's look at this verse together. In Deuteronomy 30, God says to the Jewish people, even if you have been banished to the most distant land under the heaven, from there the Lord your God will gather you and bring you. This idea of the distance place, the Hebrew word nitchei aretz. What is nitchei aretz? God says, I will go to the end of the world to bring you to me. This is God's agenda for the Jewish people, to be a nation of priests, to be a holy people, set apart to Him. Now it's a chicken and the egg. How are they going to get to this point? The nations will provoke the Jewish people to see the God of Israel again. So the Jewish people will take the role in bringing ultimately the greatest revival to humanity that will usher the return of the Messiah. Okay, now ask yourself a question. How can a Jew be provoked if they look at Yeshua and they say, well, there's nothing Jewish about this Yeshua, okay? There's nothing Jewish about it. People ask me all the time, how come those Jews cannot say that he is the Messiah? Well, the simple is simple, because we misrepresented him. We mislabeled him. And it's time for us to restore it now.
Yeah, because all the prophecies, those were written by the Jews. The Christians just believe what the Jewish people wrote. Because for me, first of all, we can't do any more blood sacrifices if we wanted to. There's no temple.
Yes.
2,000 years.
Yes.
But as it's been prophesied, it's all being gathered by God. They're all coming back. People finding out I'm Jewish. People that didn't know, you know, that they were Jewish. There's a lot more Jewish people than people realize. That, you know, through the persecution and stuff. But them getting the land back. After 2,000 years.
Look, I just returned from Israel, okay? And I was there when President Obama gave this speech. You know, I was on the board there. I was celebrating 13 years anniversary. And right before the night, Obama came and said, we're not attacking in Syria. Remember when we had this? I told my wife, no matter what, because our honeymoon package was right on the border with Syria. I told her, no matter what, we're going to go to this second honeymoon thing, because God's plan for the Jewish people is irrevocable. And anybody would want to think that God dispensed the Jewish people, done away, or God forbid, replaced the Jewish people, does not understand that the scripture says that God is not a man that he should lie. His plans to the Jewish people will come to fruition, and it's going to be the nations, the Gentiles. Look, the Gentiles don't need to become Jewish. They have the Jewish blood, the Jewish Messiah that joined them, grafted them to Israel, okay? Not so that they can change Israel, not so that they can go to become, you know, Yeshua spoke about the city on the top of the hill. What is the city on the top of the, it says it's on top of the mountain. It's Jerusalem. It is a Jewish city. So the nation has the responsibility to come to the Jewish city and to become a fellow citizens.
Wow, that's so amazing. And so that's all in your book.
This is part of the restoration of the Jewish people back to the Messiah, and it's a two-part plan. The nations are not chopped livers in this. The nations are the ones that also need to be grafted back. I look at the nations and I say, you are like orphans. You have read for 2,000 years Paul and Jesus without knowing what the Torah says. How can you even understand what Yeshua, Jesus, talk about without knowing what the Torah says?
I mean, it's just amazing for 2,000 years, no Hebrew, no land, and it's all just being restored as prophesied.
That is amazing.
There's many books, many religions, but only the Bible has prophesied exactly what is in the Bible. And if you want a Bible, I will send you one free. We will have part 2 next week. Please tune in with the second part of Rabbi Itzhak Shapira's interview, and I hope you tune in. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.